Welcome to the Hermitcraft RECAP. My name is Pixelriffs, our writer is LoyXP, and it's nice to see creators you admire being a force for good in the world, isn't it? The Hermitcraft server has once again partnered with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and welcomed a player by the nickname Pillbug for a day. The visit resulted in a giant bug statue holding hermits' heads and foretelling the future. This is, of course, only one instance in a long history of charity streams and otherwise kind deeds, but just in case you're wondering why there's this statue on the server, now you know. Also, for once, they have something that works when you throw a baked potato in. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at all the events and mishaps that occurred on the Hermitcraft server this week. Starting with Stress Monster, who returns to the server after a summer hiatus and gets thrown straight back into the action. Fortunately, her fellow hermits have been busy in her absence, and she's able to buy a beacon straight from iJevin's shop to help with all the digging at her ravine base.
How do I get out? Oh, I see. My bad. How do I, please? Go. There we go. I never thought of doing it like that. Oh no! Oh God! He's trying to murder me.
But the Moss Monster beckons, and as False Symmetry initiates her into the Sisterhood of the Travelling Froggy Hat, Stress is tasked with adding something to the Swamp Lump. A communal nether portal seems to fit the bill, even if it does mean risking the chaos of the nether for Crimsonwood. Eventually the portal is built, crowning the top of the rock, and linking to all the right hubs in all the right places. Having last week covered the walls of his slime pit with a basalt gradient, iJevin now bridges the sides of it to the centre in a grand design that for now just holds up his enchanting setup.
I feel like Batman looking over Gotham right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am so happy with how the start of our mega base has turned out. I love this build.
The excess is compounded by the fact that most of the enchantments he has available via librarian villagers anyway. Though this much magic all in one place demanded more of the swamp be converted into a lush enchanted swamp, and Jevin mosses up even more of the biome with custom trees and particle flowers to boot.
There we go. Perfect.
The swamp itself threatens to extend its influence when Gemini Tay discovers BOO at her doorstep waiting to invite her to the Big Eyes board meeting.
I know you're not even selling, but I want to buy the design to these lampposts. May I?
Yeah, you could buy it.
Though wider corporate reach could give her own alliance, the Swamp Lump, a much-needed edge in the market, let's not dismiss that this is a trap just yet. Either way, much as you try, you can't just eat diamonds, and Gem happens to be in the middle of a food shortage at her base. It's why she establishes a windmill as her next build and lures in a few villagers to trade crops and recipes with.
But I can go ahead and get lots and lots of food for myself, and I can maybe even set up a stand at my farmer's market that sells food once I get it all settled away.
Really, the testificates are getting better treatment at her place than Azuma Void's, where the Exolotl has automated the zombie plague. It's a whole thing with how a zombie's targeting algorithm is hijacked and redirected to the exact person you wish to be executed. We'll get plenty of that later in the show, don't worry. While Azuma works his way through a build the community helped to pick a colour scheme for, Evil Azuma forges the next advancement in the derp coin scheme. The two of them start offering derp keys that pave the way for a derp pass, bringing Hermitcraft's 8th attempt at economy closer to the Confusopoly than it has ever been. Another cutscene also reveals that the derp coin is seemingly made of rotten flesh, so yeah, Soylent Green is people.
So fantastic, it was practically my idea anyways.
Was it now? It's not the only transformed foodstuff the Evil Empire is selling, because Vintage Beef just moved in next door. Combining a Blackstone gathering trip with an ancient debris search and grabbing some coral from an unspoiled reef, he built a gothic shop of his own with the intention of selling some dubiously processed cat food. It sure goes with his whole homage to District 9, but we're not sure if the other hermits will consider snacking on it just yet. Then again, Impulse SV is eating amethyst shards, so maybe it's more likely than we initially thought. The price of an empty promise is once again raised when the Horsehead Farms duo of XP Crafted and Hypnotized tally up the results of their IOU auction. Hypno is dragged away from lighting up his enormous shroom cap to actually deliver the winnings, and also to extort tips from the people who already paid them.
Well, give me a second. Let me get my wallet out here.
You see, I'm British. Tipping is not really in our culture.
Really? Is that?
Really?
Is that?
But Joe, it's in Joe's culture. Joe is tipping you. There you go.
It is only a little alarming that most of the server now owes a favour to the united forces of Joe Hills and Zombie Cleo. It's at least evidence that they won't be using their server mates as peasants to build their castle. A massive time lapse takes care of most of the thing in Cleo's Q&A episode. although she is well employed for her expertise by XP Crafted to help with the alien bone worm in his dome.
And there's no real time frame. Whenever you feel like getting it done. Then
Oh, you might see this in a couple of
you
days.
know me. I'm super easy.
You're
with this stuff,
you're
so.
chill, but I get to see people impaled on teeth. That's something that most people can't give me.
Cubfan135 is spreading tremors as well, but his dripstone canyon suddenly demands a whole new kind of material. Rooted dirt, the stuff you can only get from under a freshly grown azalea.
Basically right-clicking, occasionally left-clicking if there's a moss carpet like so, but yeah. It's pretty quick to do this, actually.
Cub automates as much of the planting process as he can, and in the meantime grabs some coral for extra stone variants that come in handy for his map room.
Of course, the blue hole itself, we got plenty of coral and prismarine. We also put down a bunch of tropical fish.
Speaking of extra variants, Grian sets off on the hunt for exotic mob versions for the first interior of the Magic Shop Valley, basically a shiny pet shop. And an already successful one too. Why, he already sold a jelly cat to Good Times with Scar in exchange for a charged creeper.
Really?
A real one.
A real jelly.
A real jelly
Nobody's
cat.
ever seen a jelly on the server, ever. And you know where it is.
I know exactly where it is, and you can have
Is
it.
it secure?
It is secure.
If they can transfer one to the place, that is. Many Bothans died to bring you this episode. Some of them right in the shop already, some of them in somebody else's shop.
Oh, okay. So...
Stop! No!
I've got a bit of an issue.
Don't worry,
This was
dude, we'll just chalk this up to corporate sabotage and leave it.
Scar makes up for the holes in the terrain by making more terrain. In an effort to unite the Botum under a single Giga, he builds a mountain peak hovering over the many bases, planned in a way to incorporate everyone else's builds, both at the foot and throughout the mountain itself. It is now up to the rest of the Botum to tie their projects into the landmass, which given the whole Scar build here situation, might be the biggest no-you in the history of the server.
Red line that scatters throughout this area. Well, that's to let Grian know to build here. It eventually will when it's all connected. You also might be wondering, Scar, what about the old backside? Yeah, as you guessed it, in true Bodum fashion, there is no backside. This entire thing took 3.5 days to build.
The Hermit's ability to reverse is tested once again with Tango Tech's newest minigame, the Zombie Bumper Boats. The rules are pretty simple. Driving a boat with a zombie in the back, the player has to eliminate the other player. It's quite the spectacle, even the zombies are wearing them. Having built a circus tent over it, Tango invites Grian, Scar, and Impulse to test it, which brings much nausea and bite marks, but still results in fewer issues than Etho and B-Dubs' horse race when Tango and Cub tested out for research.
Oh, the horse is getting hurt. What is happening?
Tango's career as a crash test dummy might continue now that Impulse SV has hold of his IOU, because we're pretty sure Pearlescent Moon won't be volunteering to test any more Idimpy bars after the first one rearranged her face.
Impulse. I don't feel so good.
Uh-oh.
Wait, hold on.
You might want to take a look at your face.
Impulse? What?
While Impulse tinkers with the formula, he's also reformulating his storage plans, ditching his item sorters in favor of the Minigames design he used last season. After rummaging around in the redstone for a while, he's got modules which will now filter whichever items he programs in. Once Pearl's status is no longer green face emoji, she turns back to her role as head of layouts and formalizes some paths around Botum Town, shuffling aside people's temporary farms in the name of civic planning. She also gets blown up by Grian next to Grian's house, which might explain why there's suddenly a G-shaped hole in Pearl's base, and a crafting table war breaks out between them shortly afterwards. But despite these crafty tactics, Pearl still manages to apply a colour palette to the Lighthouse Mega Build, now she's happy with its overall shape.
But I think what we have now shows the direction that I'm going for fairly well.
She has a better time than Joe Hills, who runs into a few issues with the dimensions of roofs on his and Cleo's paper-crafted castle. Not the least of which is that removing blocks from below him leads to a lot of fall damage, and a hay bale floor can only stop so much of that.
And so I realized I would rather not keep taking fall damage and dying obnoxiously while removing and replacing and upgrading all the roofs. So, floor.
Right. Okay. A floor. I see the floor. Okay.
Luckily, Cleo is fine with him adjusting some walls for the sake of his sanity. She also likes the Beloon children, and once they pay up for their IOUs, they can bring in some other hermits to help them remodel.
It's definitely a thing that you built.
I know, but once Wells Knight comes in and cleans it up, it'll look like a thing that Wells built.
In the meantime, though, Joe still moves ahead with tiling the roofs and adjusting proportions, and the end result is looking pretty spectacular. Cleo is needed elsewhere by XB Crafted, who, quite aside from distributing these IOUs, needs Cleo to add some drama stands to his giant worm. The remodeling doesn't stop there, since he's got some aesthetic plans for Horsehead Farms, adding an abandoned copper mine nearby and integrating the lid of their mob farm into the landscape without sacrificing its functionality.
A little bit of dirt going across the front, kind of going down a little. Fit. Stop it.
Doc M has definitely had to make some sacrifices in that department after recruiting several of the hermits to help take down the unfortunately escaped Withers. Swearing himself off that project, for the time being at least, the Goat Father turns his attention to the Octagon shop itself. His tunnel bore has produced enough deep slate that they can finally build their HQ, and splitting the building duties between them, Doc time-lapses half of the build into existence. It turns out to be the left half.
Wait a minute. Doc? What? Brother, was that... I mean, when we said we're gonna do half-half, I didn't literally mean make exactly half of the thing.
It's up to Rendog to complete the other half, which he does in the form of an epic time-lapse, but the build may not even be finished there, as a community perimeter project with those who've been brave enough to enter the Hermitcraft leads to them discovering another antenna-like spider crawler, which may get built over the top of the whole thing later. Once Ren has completed the outer shell, Doc starts thinking about the redstone requirements and wires up an automatic shulker replacement system for when their stock runs low. But his business mind is already shifting up a gear, and after picking up the fastest donkey Etho could breed, he offers to sponsor the horse racing track under the Octagon banner.
Oh, I think B-dubs would like that.
Yeah, maybe talk to your business partner about that.
After all, the course is functionally and aesthetically complete after B-dubs puts in a ton of efforts to finish the decorations. And after scouring the server with Etho, he has a faster horse than even Doc M's donkey, but one which can barely get off the ground. It may be street legal, but not one for the racetrack, because the idea is the competitors can breed a horse with certain characteristics from the range of available animals.
Because, we formed some bonds with these horses, lovely Lulu.
Hopefully B-dubs will get a cut of the Octagon sponsorship because he's flat broke, to the point where he has to write another IOU to get the IOU he bid for at the Horsehead auction. And while he observes that road access to the other shops on the server may leave something to be desired, they seem to be moving their product a lot faster. Still looking to find his niche, B-dubs starts a bookshelf shop at the Big Eyes town, and finally uproots the clifftop tree, relocating it to Scar's garage.
Exactly as it was. I kind of slipped a little TNT in there anyway.
And finally there's Mumbo, who performs a world first for the Hermitcraft server and actually builds the back of something. We jest, of course, but Mount Armchair does get time-lapsed into completion over the course of his episode, but that leaves plenty of time for shenanigans, starting with Grian delivering his Christmas present a little early.
Mumbo! No one needs to know that there's actually cheap slate under here.
A normal pile of coal? He's completely covered up.
Mumbo's plan to undercut Grian's prices further each time the shop is vandalized backfires when Grian pours whatever liquids he had available over it until the prices are low enough that he can buy Mumbo out. But as the Botum CEO is quick to remind us, he has a shrewd enough business mind that he can get a bunch of iron just for Tango's advertising signs. So maybe he intended to sell to Grian all along.
Something weird has happened here. I just vandalized your shop and now I own it.
Well, joke's on you, I got 7 diamonds to some blocks I forgot about. So.
And that's about it for this week's recap. Our writer is LoyXP, and my name is Pixelriffs. Captions on this video were provided by Liara. One of my server mates on the Empire's SMP has been growing a little too big for his boots, so this week I decided to see how those boots fit with a little mining fatigue thrown in. A link to this latest heist is in the end screen theatre. Don't forget to leave a like while you're still here and subscribe so you won't miss future recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.